Welcome to Take 5, your 5-minute inspirational message from Solid Rock Drogheda. Last week there was a news report about a young man named Max Park. Now my name's Nick Park, but he's no relative as far as I know. Park is actually a very common Korean name, and I think Max is of Korean descent, but living now in the United States. But Max Park is 21 years old, but he broke a world record. And the record that he broke is for solving a Rubik's Cube. I don't know how many of you remember the Rubik's Cube. They used to be insanely popular. These little cubes with 9 squares on each side of the cube, and you had to match them up so each side was the same color. I have to admit, I never managed to solve a Rubik Cube. I mean, I spent hours on them and never managed to do it. But I know people who were able to solve them in half an hour, and even you could solve them in 7 or 8 minutes. Well, Max broke the world record by solving a Rubik's Cube in 3.13 seconds. Which I wouldn't even have time to pick up the Rubik Cube, but he solved it in 3.13 seconds. Now, what makes this even more remarkable is that Max is 21 years old, but whenever he was 2 years old, he was diagnosed as having moderate to severe autism. And he was told, or his parents were told, that he would likely require lifelong care, would never be able to live independently. Now, because the parents say that first they just sat and held each other and cried at the diagnosis because all the dreams that they had for their son, and it looked like none of that was going to come to happen. None of it would come to pass. And because one of his problems was poor motor skills, one day he was looking at a Rubik's Cube and his mum took the time to show him how it worked. And he actually took to it. In fact, he took to it really, really well. And so Max Park is now the best Rubik Cube solver in the world. Not only has he managed to solve the Rubik Cube in 3.13 seconds, but he also holds the world record for solving a Rubik's Cube with one hand. In other words, instead of going at it with 2 hands, you just hold it in one hand and somehow manage to spin. I don't know how they do that. I couldn't do that, but apparently Max can do it and has solved a Rubik Cube with one hand, and he holds the world record for that, which is 6.2 seconds, which, while being twice as long as what it takes him with one hand or with 2 hands, is still absolutely unbelievable. And I just love this story in that this is a young man who has learned to overcome adversity. You know, there are times whenever things are spoken over our lives. Sometimes they come from authority figures. You know, it can be parents, even grandparents. Sometimes instead of speaking words of life over their children and grandchildren, they speak words of death and failure and tell them they're useless, tell them they're stupid, tell them they'll never amount to anything. Words really have a power. They have a power to destroy, and they have a power to affirm and to build up. And I just think it's amazing that Max's parents, despite having this diagnosis, which was, you know, an accurate medical diagnosis from the doctors, that Max's parents decided that they were going to speak words of life into their son. They were going to speak words of hope. They were going to speak a future into him. And that has come to pass. It might not be everybody's dream for their child, but Max has received international fame for his abilities, despite the many difficulties that he has faced. And it may be that today you are tempted to concentrate on the difficulties that you face. I would encourage you, step out and believe that God can do something great through you. And don't be afraid to speak words of life and encouragement over others that they might do the same. May God bless you today in Jesus' name, and join us again tomorrow for another Take 5, your 5-minute inspirational message from Solid Rock Drogheda.